Hey everybody, Red Mage here. Welcome back to this series where I go through different RPG products that I have and give them a quick flip through and review. In this one I'm going to be doing a bit of another grab bag video. I have 8 adventures here, well actually more because this is a little collection, but 8 different documents here, PDFs here, that are each really good in their own way. They're very different. Actually I think a lot of these are kind of darker. This might be a better, some of these would be better suited for Halloween, but you know, it's Valentine's Day, it's basically Halloween. It's pretty horrific anyway. The first one I'm going to be covering is The Little Book of Little Adventures. This is by Artur Gajewski. This is the Fantasy Edition Volume 1. It's the only volume that's out yet right now. And by the way, most of these are pay what you want, although some of them are for some money. So I'll put links below to where you can get them all. They're almost all on DTRPG. Some of them are on itch.io as well. One of them is just on itch, but I'll put the links where you can get them all. So The Little Book of Little Adventures. I think this is a really cool one. It's cute for my daughters Aisa and Adele. This was released in 2017. And it's just basically a system-neutral 2-page dungeon, or book of 2-page dungeons. And it's really very simple. There's some information about him. He's from Finland, and a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. And he asks for donations. If you would like, you can pay what you want for this book. It's free, but you know, pay what you want. This is what you're going to get. These are great little dungeons. They're very short, just a few rooms with a brief description of each room, and that's it. There are no really systems given, but there are sort of assumptions made about what kind of game you're playing. Obviously, it's going to be fantasy with some goblins. There's generally kind of a low-level adventure. There's some skill challenges sort of understood, and some puzzles that you're looking in, but they're all very simple, just cute little dungeons. I say cute because I like the fact that they're small and they're kind of just compact, and I don't know why I said cute. It's not really cute. Goblins aren't cute exactly. Well, they can be, I suppose. Regardless, there's also, giant spiders and things like that too. It's all very straightforward. It reminds me, the art style reminds me a bit of Runehammer, and the dungeons are all very, very short. You're going to play these in an evening. They're very simple dungeons. That's the whole thing. That's the biggest at the end, is 8 rooms. So again, you're looking at short, to the point adventures. I think you guys should check this one out. If you need a little adventure or a little map to throw into your game for the night, these are great ones, and they're all fun. They're a little, again, they're not complicated. These are great for new players or for younger players, or if you're a brand new DM, you want just the bare bones. And the fact that it's a system neutral, but it has like monster names and stuff like that, means you can just plug in your system of choice and it'll probably run just fine. I mean, some systems are not going to work out as well as others, but still, The Little Book of Little Adventures, I think it's great. So again, I'll put links below where you can get that. The next one is The Isle of the Evil Eye. This is made by Rip Pip, and it's an adventure for 1st to 4th level characters for Shadowdark, so it's actually quite a long range of adventures here. First of all, the cover art is awesome. I think that's really cool looking, those chains between all the links, the coils of the snake, the guy chained at the bottom there. The Isle of the Evil Eye. This was made for, I think, the Weird Tales game jam. It's one of those adventures that I've been meaning to put into a book for a while. It's possible that I have already, honestly. I don't think I have. But anyway, I wanted to emphasize it again, because it's really, really cool. There's this island where Viperians used to rule, and now there are devils there. There's vampire spawn there that are trapped there, and half sea creatures, half men who are on the island too. The long story short, long ago in this outpost, a fiend was summoned and chained by the Viperians. Their leader, Sesnu, was arrogant and believed he could bend the devil to his will to serve. Over time, the fiend turned the Viperians against each other, and in a single night, the keep slaughtered itself. In the end, Sesnu was turned into a giant snake to serve his new fiend master. So now the devil is the one in charge. The others are the ones who are monsters to fight. But of course, it's all the devil is going to pretend to be chained up. Obviously, is not. Great art throughout, and just really, really cool layout. Really, again, I should always do these 2-page spreads, and let me do that really quickly. All right, that's a little better. You get the sense of the 2 pages laid out beside each other, and of course, the whole thing is hyperlinked, which I really, really like. You can click on the section of the book that you want right there, and there's a note on that right here. Sidebar, hyperlink to corresponding section of the adventure. Really cool. It's a great little quick flip through. Always very happy about those sorts of things. You don't need page numbers when you have hyperlinking. Page numbers are also good, but hyperlinking makes it much, much easier to navigate. you have a layout of the dungeon, and again, it's very, very, very straightforward. I really like how it works. Oops, excuse me. The adventure has a bunch of keys, so you have light and things with the open eye, because it's you can choose to run this adventure for daylight, and if you do that, then you just use the eye because those are open air, they're well lit, and total darkness are in all other areas. It's important for Shadow Dark. So you can see that there's a good number of places where if you're playing it during the day, there's a lot of visibility. The Archer Outpost isn't, the hall isn't, the storage room isn't, but the Black Corridor isn't, but the rest are, at least on these 2 pages. Now you don't get the map until the end. I think it would have been better to put the map in this art, although the art is good and it's flavorful. It brings you into to what's going on here. It really does, but it isn't strictly necessary, and the map would be, I think, would be better. Yeah, that's just my opinion. You've got some cool things here, including like a true name, which is awesome. I love those sorts of adventures where you have the true name of a creature. It makes it much easier to fight. Shadow Dark has as the true name a magic item, and I don't see enough people making use of that. So I really, really like that, especially for the fact that we're talking about a demon here. You got some treasures in the vault, some random treasures, which is pretty cool, and a timer there. The vault stays open for 5 rounds, and everything gets flooded if you're not careful. You get the Child of the Sea, a deformed human with the head of a sea creature. Some baths, a quotation from, or a reference to Game of Thrones, Tywin Lannister there in the lavatory. I think it's a reference to Tywin Lannister. And then you get the map at the end with a couple of last pages. I think it's a really cool map too. You have a very simple overview of the floor here, and then you have the floor A and floor B. And then, of course, you get, floor C, which is in the back. Yeah, this is made for the Weird Tales Game Jam here at the back. I like this a lot. I think this is really cool, especially, I think I like the layout quite a bit. There's a good loop going on here, and so you can find some good ins and outs. And also, the little out island, if you go here, B10, gives you access to the tower. Now, I don't know if you can gain access to B10 from the outside. Let me see here. If we go back to B10, it says News Tower. It's open. Yeah, crumbled walls, so I think you could just climb right through. That would be very, very useful. That's also where the true name is, so that's a good place to go search. And it's going to stand out to the players because it's the tower off of the main island. So if you tell them that there's a crumbled floor up there or crumbled wall, they're going to want to go over there and check it out. And that'll lead them to the dungeon down below, which is really cool. Although C8 is flooded, so they're going to have to swim through that, it looks like. Anyway, it's a great adventure. I think it's really cool. Isle of the Evil Eye. It's a cool setting if you're doing a wave crawl or you're doing an island hopping adventure. Then drop this one in. This is going into my, at some point to be determined, pirate campaign. This is definitely going in there. Isle of the Evil Eye. The next one is something very different. It's by Luca Reyes. This is Let Us In, which is a neo-70s horror adventure in the Last Lands. This is a weird one, really weird one. I like it though. The idea here is that it's a roughly 3-hour adventure, and it's horror, and it's for sort of its own system. It's system neutral, but there's some implications of like abilities or some things like that. And the idea here is that you are going off into the countryside. You come to this weird town. Everything's weird. You go to your house, which you're going to stay at, and then the people of the town come and start trying to get in. And it's not good. They're not good. They're really terrifying. But the layout of the book is really cool. It's Luca Reyes, so you can imagine the layout, the art, all of that is going to be top notch. I really, really like it. The house is super interesting. It's got this really cool layout. It's got a lot of interesting rooms. There's a lot of glass. And then these things are trying to get in, and what are you going to do? Because you have a certain amount of supplies, you have a certain amount of time you can survive. There are other places nearby where you could try to escape. It's really open-ended. Here's the arrival, the letter, and the 4 heroes. You're going to pick one of these 4. And you can get the relative, the friend, the driver, and the guide. And each of them have a little bit of interest. Now, the world isn't our world. It's not like just America or something like that, or Europe or something like that. It's this sort of... it's a sort of fantasy world, but it's a fantasy world that has cars, and it's a modern era, but it's in another world. It's kind of an interesting idea there. You could easily shift this into any city, right? Although the western sky swiftly shades from red to purple. There's an auto golem. Again, you could decide what that means, right, if you don't want to play it necessarily as a car or whatever's going on here. You don't have to put it in a fantasy world, in other words, is what I'm saying. So that, I'm going to go back here really quickly. Everyone has these special actions. It's one of those things where you need to, you'd have to adapt it to your system of choice. Yes, it's system neutral, but then there are these special things here. Like the driver has a dirty fighter, goes first in a conflict, and gains a bonus. You'd have to adapt that. The action 2 is Banya shrugs off all damage they took the previous round. Again, not hard to put into your system of choice, but it could really change things. So the guide, for example, has a hidden pistol surprise. Yasha's opponent is shot dead. I mean, if you're playing in OSE or something like that, or Shadow Dark, that's just a really powerful ability, and it's really powerful in any system. But in a game where it's much more narrative heavy, that's less important, it's less impactful. I mean, it's obviously impactful, it's less powerful. So you want to keep that in mind. Yeah. The humanity tracks, you can become less and less human. You become more like the Pohus or the Pohus. When they're just trying to grab you, and they're trying to inject these uplift spores. And basically it's like a join us, everything is perfect, let us in sort of thing. Join us in our happiness. And there's the antagonists and what they are. And it's interesting because there's D8 attributes for each of them, and they're not going to be necessarily the same. You can either do it for each individual as different, or you can make them all that way. So high-end 80s PC, beige skin, or they survive without food, or if not killed, they swiftly regenerate, or they have an enemy like rosettes on palms. You can choose what they do. You could roll, or you can have that be for each individual one. So they don't have to act that way. They function as uncanny valley vampires, spreading by injection baseline humans with nematocysts full of uplift spores. Nematocysts. They link them to a higher mind, but they cannot enter unless they're invited, hence the vampire idea here. This is a great adventure. Really, really cool adventure. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's only 16 pages in PDF. And so I don't want to go through too much more. But it's really cool. You can see from just the map that it looks so cool. And the idea of being trapped in this house, which is pretty detailed, these creatures which are detailed, and you have the surrounding region, like where are we going to go? Are we going to try to drive away? Are we going to try to get to the arrow pad? Are we going to try to get to the hospital? Right, what are we doing? And I think that's really cool. Are they breaking in? Does someone change? And that's the thing, because as the PCs start to get in contact with these things, they're going to start changing. And so the players are going to have to adapt that. This is definitely not for new players. This is something I would play with experienced players as a one-shot for Halloween, or for something everyone's over. We're going to play a kind of a spookier game. I think that would be great. So Let Us In by Luca Reyes, a neo-70s horror adventure in the Last Lands. Again, I'll put links where you can get this one. If you haven't seen it before, I highly recommend you guys check it out. Okay, the next one is Hot Rain Falls on the Boiling City. The idea here is this was an adventure made for the Knave Game Jam. The idea behind this one is that there is this sort of sinkholes are appearing in town, and everything's starting to collapse. But one of the rich and the powerful are kind of getting, maybe not targeted, but their houses are getting destroyed, wrecked, sunk into the ground. And one of them is this huge one that has a fabled cellar treasure vault. And everyone's like, ooh, now that it's unguarded, now that it's broken, maybe we should break in there and try to find it. And so it's kind of like a race against time, sort of. There's a heist, and there are other opponents. So on the surface, this is a simple heist. Raid a money lender's fallen mansion before his mercenaries arrive, rival scoundrels get there, or the floodwaters wash it away. So it's a really interesting timer mechanic. Like, you got to do this quickly because other people are coming, both to defend it, rivals, and then just, there's also this natural disaster that's going on. And so are we going to be able to get there? What are we going to do? How are we going to get there? All that stuff. That's part of the adventure. But then there's in the basement, there's stuff going on there. One of those things is that all of this is fake. Spoiler alert. All of this is fake. The moneylender's fabulous wealth is fabricated, created by the dreamings of a psychic insect he stole long ago from the skull of an ancient king in the Eldritch Bog beyond the city wall. It's pretty weird. But the idea is that this is capable of dreaming into existence a duplicate of any object or entity it samples, including human beings. Everything is killed, or it samples them. So I think that means it just takes them into itself or eats them or something like that, and then it can create a duplicate of them. That means everybody in the house is like that. High officials have been replaced by these things. Really interesting creatures. And so you're going in here, you're trying to find out what's going on, and hey, if you can capture this beast and use it for yourself, that would be great. There's many endings, so there's no set way that this is going to go. If you don't find the creature, you just take the money and get out of there, and then it disappears. Or maybe they use it and spend it, and then it disappears. You have some possible encounters. You have Selena's gang, the Dream Servants, the Dream Chimeras, and the Mercenaries. And yeah, you have sort of timelines for each of the factions, which is pretty cool. If they collide off screen, you roll their dice and you see how it works. There's sort of like a mini game going on in the background. This is not an easy game to run. It looks like it'll be a bit more complicated. But I think it's still pretty cool. The flowing street, because again, everything's starting to flood and get overrun. And so this reminds me a bit of the approach to Deep Carbon Observatory, where you're going upriver during the flood of the dam, and there's stuff floating by, and there's encounters to be had and stuff going on. This reminds me of that, if you guys have seen that. Here's the flooding basement, and then the gaping sinkhole with some laboratory details, treasure details, dreamer details, and a whole bunch of rumors at the end. And then something interesting floats by. How many turns it takes to get through the adventure, and then the credits at the back. Or the inspiration, I should say, yeah. All of Florida is one of the inspirations. Sailors on the Starless Sea, yeah. Thief, that makes sense, definitely. Ankh-Morpork, I also got that quite a bit, as well as you got some Terry Pratchett in there. So I think this is quite interesting. Hot Rain Falls in the Boiling City. It's a unique adventure idea. And I really like the multiple timer mechanics, sort of where there's different timelines for the various different factions. And there is this overall sense that everything's getting sunk down. You got to go quick. I like that. You don't have to have a specific timer, but you have this general sense of urgency. That's good. Again, I'll put links below to where you can get this. This was made for the game, the Knave Game Jam, and this one I think is on itch.io. All right, the next one is Abbotsmoore, which is the first of the Abbot Trilogy. This was something that I kickstarted a while back, and I haven't had a chance to really go through it until recently. I really like these. They're 3 adventures. They're system-neutral adventures, which is interesting. So you have a trilogy of adventures that are system-neutral, but there's an assumption of game style. It's certainly OSR, and so the kind of puzzles, the kind of dungeons, the amount of creatures you're facing, the sort of treasure you're getting, it's not really baked for 5e or something like that. So you could adapt it for a newer system, I guess, but it's made for something like Old School Essentials or BNX D&D or Knave or Shadow Dark or something like that, which the more compatible old school games. The art throughout is really, really good. The idea is that there's sort of a series of linked adventures, and in this one you're dealing with the Abbot. The Abbotsmoore is a system-agnostic hex crawl adventure set in an ancient ruined city soaked in a swamp. So that's a really cool idea. I love the idea of hex crawling through a city. I've always liked that. And there's lots of different ruins. There's lots of different adventures to be had there. There's a couple dungeons, some locations to fight through, and you have a brief description of how all this is. The Abbot is this troll and priest to an ancient god. So it's this dangerous creature that's down there. And why do you seek the Abbots? There's a D6 table of hooks right at the very beginning. And then you've got these things throughout. Now, if you buy this product, this is a paid product. This is not pay what you want or free. If you buy this one, you do get the maps in a separate file. So this is a little bit hard to read on the page, but you get your own map of it. And it's a good map. It's very interesting. It's Tolkien-esque, at least the mountains remind me of Tolkien quite a lot. You have the different explorers and what they have, reaction table, which is great. And then again, the Abbot Trilogy, this is the first of a series of 3 adventures. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm going to go through, this is about 17 pages in PDF form, so it's fairly big, fairly substantial. Into the Swamp, it's a horrible day for it. The weather, it's not good. The weather's almost always bad. You have a 1 chance, a 1 in 6 chance that the weather's good. On a 4, it's a clear day and nothing's wrong, but everything else is bad, so you're really not there. You got some very interesting complications. An explorer violently swinging a sword in the air, screaming, "I see you." That's great. Where you start and then hacking through the ruins, talking about what they are, right? Each ruin has the same characteristics, so it's really nice there. And then you have some different locations. The catacombs, a house in the ruin, Ilianeth's shrine, the messenger's center, the gallery, the hall of memory, right? And as you go forward, some of these get bigger and bigger, and then you're going to actually deal with some bigger dungeons towards the end. The monastery, good piece of the rat folk there, anthropomorphic rat. And then again, there's some suggestions. So hit dice of 1, highly agile, armor as leather, exceptional stealth with nimble fingers, and a 1 in 10 chance of surviving a fatal attack, bite as dagger. So you have stats, but not really stats, right? You can easily substitute your own there and use this as inspiration to create your own stat blocks. But you know the level of creature you're fighting. This is a low-level creature who's stealthy, hard to hit probably, and because of the highly agile, and has this really impressive recovery ability. Can just survive any attack on a 1 in 10. So individual rats probably not going to be so interesting, but if you have a whole bunch of them, then that's going to start coming up, right? And you're gonna kill a whole bunch, and then suddenly 4 come back. You're like, oh man, that's frustrating. But that's great. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you get the point you get the idea of what this is. It's a sort of hex crawl with 7 distinct locations, 7 distinct dungeons, and some extra locations as well built in, or extra encounters built in as well. The Abbot's Trilogy. Now this is the first of 3. I'm not going to go through the other 2 in this video. I'll probably cover them at some point. But I like them all. This is not my favorite of the 3, but it's the first of the 3, so I wanted to cover it here. Anyway, again, I'll put links below to where you can get this one. I think it's a really good system-neutral adventure. If you're okay doing a bit of adaptation, I highly encourage this. And I always like adapting my adventures anyway. I can't remember the last time I've run an adventure as written without changing it at all. Yeah, that just doesn't happen. So I'm mostly okay with adaptation. So this one's right up my alley. All right, the next 3 are very interesting. All 3 were sent to me, and so I want to thank the people who did. But they weren't always sent to me by the creators, which is interesting. This one, A Strange House, was not sent to me by the creator. It was sent to me by somebody who watches the channel who just wanted to get my thoughts on it. A Strange House. The first thing I would say is that actually it's a little bit difficult to read the text on the front page, except for A Strange House. But the other oddities, the Crumbling Keep Presents, and the sort of extra stuff at the bottom there, it's a little hard to read just because of the background and the font choice. I might have picked a different, or the color of the font. I might have chosen a different color. I might have left it all red or something like that. But I think it's fine. The Strange House is what stands out, or A Strange House is what stands out. The presentation of this book is quite enjoyable. It's charming, I would say. The idea here is that you just have a weird house. That's it. It's a weird house. And there's some interesting NPCs, there's some weird rooms, and there's some possible things that are happening, and there's some reasons why you might be here. And then there's some extra at the end, some extra possible adventures to have in the region, or just use them as inspiration. Like, it's kind of a catch-all book. It's like, hey, here is a book, here is a place, here is some stuff, and then here's some more stuff. And they might not relate, they might relate. It's up to you how to do it. But here's just a bunch of interesting, charming, funny ideas. Go for it. There's no set quest here. There's no set path through the house. It's up to you. So you have a very simple house here. The different rooms are hyperlinked, really, on the first page, which is great. You don't necessarily know exactly what each of them is when you hyperlink there, but some of them are going to catch your eye, and you're going to want to say, hey, I want to see what's up with this bird at the top, or I want to see what's up with this barrel with legs over here. You have this goat who tells you some of the truths about the house. And then you have the layout. What this reminds me of is Over the Garden Wall very explicitly, and I think that is an explicit, well, actually, I'm not sure about this, so I shouldn't say it is, but it seems to be a very strong inspiration throughout this whole work. The art style looks like Over the Garden Wall, and the kind of absurdist, dreamlike stuff you're encountering as you go through this sort of humor that you run into here is very much Over the Garden Wall. Like, for example, stuffed giant lizard head. This is in the sitting room. Anyone expecting the stuffed lizard head will be greeted by a bug crawling out of its mouth. Literally. It's quite the polite little insect. What the insect knows. So they're actually not kidding, right? So you're looking at this thing, a bug crawls out of its mouth, and it's like, ew. Oh, and it's like, hello. And it actually is talking to you, right? Or she is. Her name is Jizwai. And she is petty and jealous. Oh no, that's you. The insect is talking about the huntswoman. Never mind. So I think this is quite funny. Very interesting. you've got stuff like that throughout. There's a trophy room with a bunch of creatures, and they all have their own personality. They all have their own kind of interest. They all have what they know, except the Beholder, who just yells, grunts, snorts, and especially raspberries, all are fair game. So the name is a little bit, I think, copyrighted, but that's okay. We'll skip past that. We're not worried about that on this channel so much. I know some people are, though, and I think probably the change of name there would be necessary were this to become a popular book. Yeah. I think. I don't know the details, but there's a reason, I think, why most other games and adventures, unless they're officially licensed, don't use that. But anyway. You have the greenhouse, you have the bedroom, and then you have Marbell and the attic. And again, a whole bunch more. This book is 23 pages in PDF form, and it's a double-page spread, so it's actually quite long. It's over 40 pages. You get a whole bunch of stuff in here. What's in the attic, the sprite curses. I'm going to jump to the end just to show you guys the extra stuff at the end. Because, yeah, here we go. Once you get through the house, you have the sort of extra stuff. So, for example, the PCs come upon a Minotaur carrying a motionless woman. And then it has a whole thing about what's going on there. Or the new prospect. When the PCs go to town, they find themselves targeted. A thief tries to make off with one of their possessions, leaving in the place a piece of paper with a half moon drawn on it. Would-be assassins shoot arrows inches away from their head, only to disappear into the shadows. This harassment is a daily event. The locals know the half moon's meaning. It is the symbol of the Star Shadow Thieves Guild. They have a headquarters in town, but no one knows where to find it. That's it, right? So the idea is, hey, we're testing you. We want you to join us. It's kind of a cool idea. Then there's party time with this goblin. They still ride thieves for slime. Just a whole bunch of extra stuff at the end. And again, all of those things at the end are not necessarily tied to the house. They're just extra adventure ideas. So there's a whole bunch of that sort of thing. So this is a really cool adventure because it's not just one place. Oops. It's not just one place. It's a whole bunch of ideas tied to this. So if you were to put this hex or this place in a hex in your world, and then you use the rest of the ideas to kind of populate the surrounding areas, random encounter tables or adventures for your players to have in the surrounding regions, you'd have a very distinct feeling and tone for that portion of your world, which is good. And if you put it in like a forest or you put it in a certain kind of terrain, the players would associate that feeling with that place. And that's a really good thing to do. So anyway, A Strange House and Other Oddities. You guys should check it out. Absolutely. I want to thank the viewer who sent it to me. I won't say particular names, but thank you for sending A Strange House to me. The next one is Smoking Wyrm Monographs Volume 1, Number 2. Now, I've reviewed the first of these a while back. That one was the one where the players were hired by the witch to go into town and then to come back. So they're kind of working for the monsters, and they're trying to get magic and stuff like that from the townsfolk. Trying to get the big bell from the townsfolk. Well, this one is basically they're sent into like a executioner's garden. It's called the Hangman's Garden. The players start off by being punished, thrown down into this place called Justicia's Will, I believe, or just thrown into the Hangman's Garden, I guess is what it's called. Justicia's Will is the things going on in the background. The Justicia is the goddess. The idea is the players have broken the law, and they're thrown down into this garden, and each of the rooms is a way of killing them. And if they make it through, then Justicia has spoken, and yeah, this is Justicia's Will. It's not a fair trial. You get your weapons, and you get to try to get through it. And if you make it through, then the goddess must be on your side. You must be innocent. Sort of like a trial by fire, or trial by water, or a trial by combat. In the medieval world, it's like, hey, if you make it through, obviously you're innocent. If you don't, then you must have been guilty. And so that's it. You just get thrown into this place. And so each room is sort of a challenge, and they're each there to kill you in some way or another. And so the players are going to kind of try to figure their way through them. Now, one of the interesting things about this is it's very clearly linear, right? You start in 1, you go to 2, you go to 3, you go to the hallway in 4, you go to 5, you go to 6. At 6, you have a choice of way to proceed, but then you go right to 10. So there really is just you're going to encounter this, then you're going to encounter that, then you're going to encounter this. It makes sense in the context, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the most, if your players are really into radical choice, they might not like this. On the other hand, you could play that up, right? This is a punishment. This is a punishment by a particular sheriff and a particular town. The players might not like the experience of being funneled any more than you, or any more than their characters do. And you can use that, right? You could use that to be like, hey, maybe you want revenge after you get out. Even though you've just gotten through if you get out. Maybe you want revenge on the people who did it to you because they put you into this place. You don't want revenge on me, the DM, for making you go through a linear adventure. You want revenge on the sheriff, right? If you have a particular kind of group, then perhaps they would be interested in that sort of thing. And again, not everybody cares about the sort of linear adventure style. Some people don't mind that. It's not my favorite, but I don't think a lot of people, I don't think everybody hates it. I certainly don't hate it. It's just not my favorite. It's designed, by the way, for DCC. The Smoking Mirror Monographs, I think, are all designed for DCC. Now, the garden is very interesting. The sorts of things you're encountering in it, it's not hyperlinked, but the sort of things you're encountering with it are what you would expect in a place like this, right? You've got crucifixion trees, you've got the Hall of Heads, you've got the endless cells, the Hangman, the Glade of Fire. Very flavorful, evocative names for the rooms. And the things that you're encountering, that there's the lair of the spiny lion, the endless cells, and the spirits of guilt. It's very interesting. I'm going to read through a couple of these paragraphs on the endless cells. If there is a dwarf in the party, they will also detect a slight whiff of both gold and silver coming from the right. The cell doors are just thick iron bars from floor to ceiling, and most of them are locked. 3 cell doors down the right passage on the right side, however. A humanoid figure. 3 cell doors down, the right passage on the right side, however, a humanoid figure lies fetal on the ground with its back to the cell door. The whimpering and the smell of valuables both emanate from the cell. The figure is a human woman made catatonic by the attacks of the spirits of guilt that also inhabit this cell. As soon as a character enters the cell, the spirits will become visible and attack, hissing guilty at the party the whole time. The spirits of guilt, and they're creepy. They look really creepy there in the image. Sort of like Dementors or something. When one of the spirits makes a successful attack against a character, that character not only takes 1d4 damage, but also becomes afflicted with the guilt curse. The curse and personality damage can be avoided with a successful DC 10 will save, and it is removed if the character proves their innocence by leaving the garden. And the guilt curse essentially means that you are going to start fumbling more. You're fumbling on a 16 plus. Whenever you fumble at a 16 plus on the fumble table, which is really bad, regardless of anything else. And if you reduce your personality down, and if it gets to 0, you become catatonic. So real bad. And the spirits keep following you around. And there's who this woman is and what's going on with these cells. It's kind of a creepy creature, and I like that. I think that is that's enjoyable to me. The endless cell contents and what you can find in them if you could spend some time searching. There's some creatures, but there's some also random encounters. And this is a nice change from the linearity, because you have some, hey, do you want to spend time searching through these cells, going up and back down through the cells and trying to find something? And there's some really good stuff here as well, so it's worthwhile. I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but you get some really creepy creatures like the stuff at Carrion Hill, the Hall of Heads, and the Crucifixion Trees, and the Glade of Fire. Like, there's some genuinely creepy things. There's also some very obvious traps, right? And that's the idea, is that these are designed to catch you and to destroy you. And at the very end, of course, there's going to be a battle against the guy whose job it is to ensure that no one really passes by. So Smoking Wyrm Monographs is a great little adventure. It's 28 pages in PDF form here. And you're getting a full-on adventure. It's very linear. It's very railroady, because you start off getting thrown down. So you could use this as a in your back pocket if you have a certain kind of world where this sort of place would make sense. You could use this if your players ever do break the law, or you could just start off a campaign this way, or just do it as a one-shot. So anyway, The Hangman's Garden by Dieter Zimmerman. I think this is a really interesting adventure. I'll put links below to where you can get that. And again, thank you to my viewer for sending this to me. The last one is The House of 99 Souls, a bone-chilling adventure by Danilo Frontani. This is a very interesting adventure. It's 40 pages, and I think it's only $3 on DTRPG, which is great. A lot of bang for your buck. And this adventure is grim, it's dark, it reminds me of, well, it's a haunted house, essentially. And you're dealing with undead. Once you enter, you cannot leave. There's a curse. And so the presentation is really, really good. This is, the editing and the graphic design is by Andrea Tupac Mollica, who I've reviewed work by Andrea before. Really, really good stuff. So, yeah, layout is great. The writing is great. It's dark. You're dealing with this guy who has this artifact, draws souls into it, and he needs to collect souls, and he's almost there. And there's an interesting idea. There's this soul clock that's counting up to 99, and once it gets to 99, bad stuff happens. And right now it's at 95. Now, what's interesting is that, of course, the players are the ones who could be added to that list, but there are some optional ideas here for unexpected visitors, other people who are coming into the tower too. And now the players have this additional worry. Once they find out about how the clock works and what the souls work, and now if people die here, they enter this thing, and bad stuff is going to happen if 99 die, then you could really add an interesting element of, say goblins come into the house trying to loot it or to kill the players. Well, now the players don't want to kill the goblins. They want to incapacitate them. And that creates an interesting idea, because whenever the players cannot kill their opponent, interesting things start happening. Instead of just trying to kill them using their most powerful spells and going all out, they have to be cagey, they have to try to use non-lethal damage, they have to try to negotiate or something. And that's interesting. It also means that as they encounter the different monsters in the house, they're going to be, again, hesitant at first. Does killing this count as killing a thing with a soul, or does it not? And that'll be a good question, because some of them do, or at least one of them does, as I go through. Lady Nariel does have a soul. Not all of them do, and so it's going to be an interesting sort of like a risk-reward thing. But as the author points out, if you do add in other things with souls, you probably don't want to just have that happen right away, because then the players will kill them and it'll go right up to 99, and that's the end. So perhaps they should have a figure out first, and then something comes in, and maybe even drop the soul counter down to 92 or something like that. That way, 7 deaths can occur instead of just 4 before the thing ends. And I would say it's interesting to either have the number be the same as how the PC, so if there's 4 PCs, right, have it 95. If there's 5 PCs, have it be 94. Or if there's 5 PCs, have it be 95. And that way one of them knows, hey, I could make it out. Everyone else is going to have to die, but if it ticks up, then maybe I don't have to die. So maybe. Although if the Souls of Ritual is complete, the guy wakes up and he's going to hunt down everybody in the manor. So probably you're dead anyway. But it'd be a very horror movie last moment, right, where you get outside the house and you're like, I made it, and then the thing comes out after you and it's like, oh no, and that's the end of the adventure. You could totally do that too. Anyway, the presentation, the layout is very, very good. It's designed to be evocative. It's designed to draw you in. There's good use of public domain art throughout. And there's some good use of, art, not public domain. I don't think that's in the public domain. Just it's good, flavorful, these creepy crystals. Pendant made of rough ruby gemstone. You have bone spiders, which are a creepy creature that you see throughout this book. And you get some of these, you get some weird creatures here, like the spirit of Bran, the Tormentor, who is not happy. His dad did not feed him to the thing. It's very interesting. So this guy doesn't want to kill you, but he has to. So he's going to try to let you escape. He's going to be the sort of classic, get out of here, as he's trying to chase you down. It's kind of interesting there. And then there's just some interesting, and again, it's very horrific. It's very sad as you go through what happened to the family and ghost children and things like that. So it's definitely sad. But there's some interesting stuff happening throughout the dungeon too. Extra stuff to do, like vials of liquid, which you can drink, and bad stuff or good stuff can happen to you. Always interesting there. Now, one of the things that's interesting about them is that, like, for example, the white vials, you just save versus death or you wither away. That's it. But if you drink the black one, you recover 2d6 plus 2 hit points. You get to shrink to half size, or poison for 8 hours. There better be a way for the PCs to kind of help to understand what those are. I didn't find it in my first read through, but it's possible that I missed something. That there's a way to understand what each of those vials is. Otherwise, you just have a random vial, random chance of death. I'm not usually a fan of like random death now, but if the players are drinking random potions they find in a cursed mansion, maybe it's on them that they wither away to death. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the rest of this book. Again, it has about 40 pages in PDF form, but you get the point. It's a good one. It's a really good adventure. The House of 99 Souls. I think it's a great presentation. And again, that $3 price tag is really, really good. You get a lot of bang for your buck. I think a lot of people would have charged probably like $8 for this adventure, $10 maybe for this adventure for 40 pages. And I think this is a really good deal. So I highly recommend you guys check out the House of 99 Souls as well. So we've gone through the House of 99 Souls, the Hangman's Garden, A Strange House, the first of the Abbotsmoore Trilogy, Hot Rain Falls on the Boiling City, Let Us In, Isle of the Evil Eye, and the Little Book of Little Adventures. Hope this has been an interesting video, guys, and I'll see you all in another one.